I called Zach and I was like, hey, I just kind of swarm. You want it? And he said, screw it. Let's do this. And there were bees at his house.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize, that you could have bees in DC, and I was just kind of shocked when Monica was like, oh, I'll connect you with Ernesto, and, within months I had bees.
We're taking the last of the honey for the year. How you been doing? I know, we got so much rain and it cooled down a little. These people have a pretty cool garden. They grow a ton of vegetables and flowers. Basically, I just asked if I could put a hive in their yard. They don't deal with the bees at all. They're just gracious and give me space. DC regulation limits the number of hives you can have in your yard to 4, so I was pretty much at capacity. So my neighbors here let me, and then got connected with a lady in Tacoma. Let me put hives in her yard too. This queen's name is Reina Madre de la Tierra, Queen Mother of the Earth.
You have to have like a physical barrier 6 feet high so that the bees fly up and over and not like into people's faces on the sidewalk. But otherwise, the city's pretty friendly about it. And so it was really easy to do.
Yeah, it's a partnership between the city and the beekeeping community. About 10 years ago, the beekeeping community was able to get city council legislation passed to regulate beekeeping, because before it was illegal in the district to keep bees largely. But now we have sort of a relationship with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, where they set the basic rules that were written in consultation with beekeepers, and that we have a really good inspector who comes out and can help folks make sure they're in compliance and deal with community relations. Non-stop work. My husband said to me, why did you have to pick a hobby that's all chores? They're all chores, non-stop chores. Easy peasy, right? Lemon squeezy. They sort of fly in a zigzag pattern, and they generally know where the beehive is. In a place like this, the problem is that they're all coming in from this angle over here, and so they kind of guess about where they are. But some bees from this hive that left from this hive will fly to that hive and go home there, and some of the bees that leave from that hive will stop too soon and end up here. It's called drift, bee drift. And so one way that you can fix it is by making a mark on the front of the hive, which I haven't done, and they can see the mark. It's probably weighs around 40 pounds each. Each one of these boxes will probably yield around 27 pounds of honey. We're in that sort of age range where, we're turning from the cool young dudes into like our grumpy dads, and so I think that's sort of the sense. I mean, being around a lot of other beekeepers, we're still relatively young, but
they're like mostly in their 60s and 70s.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we're just trying to. I think there's a moment for millennials in their mid to late 30s who are finding and rediscovering the things that their parents loved at our age, and realizing we're not that different from our parents. Number one thing that urban beekeeping demonstrates to me is that we aren't that far away from nature, no matter where we are. The bees exist in DC without being, there are unmanaged colonies and trees all over DC.
To teach our community, all my neighbors are huge fans now. The little kids that live next door were like terrified of bees. Now they can't get enough of the bees. They want to see them all the time. They're not afraid anymore.
This is the hard part. Each of these can weigh a lot, like 40, 50 pounds. Jesus. Bees from this hive, when they were coming back, in order to avoid these branches, were just kind of accidentally flying into that hive, because this hive like exploded in population. And this hive, while like the queen was laying like mad, she was laying tons and tons of eggs, but there just were not very many adult bees. So what I ended up doing was I put some Gorilla Tape in different patterns. This one horizontal, those vertical, to help them remember which is theirs, and it worked. So I just went to a talk on the history of beekeeping. The first kind of written, somewhat scientific descriptions about beekeeping were by Aristotle. You know, he had some good ideas about what was going on. He had some bad ideas. It wasn't until I think the 1600s when people realized that the queen bee was a female and that she was responsible for laying eggs. Before that, they called it the king bee. And they thought drones, males, were another species. I've got one on my hand. Because they weren't observed really doing anything. They just thought that they were like some kind of parasitic species that lived in the hive.
Just, yeah, it's too much fun the way it is to try to get to be the Walter White of bees. It's not for me.
Yeah, I think it would lose most of its charm if it like became a full-time job.
Yeah.
Not to mention that just the economics of beekeeping, it's very impossible to like turn it into a money-making endeavor unless you move into the selling bees to other people or selling beekeeping equipment. But like just honey itself is
honey's not
not profitable.
And if you are selling big amounts of honey, you're selling it to like a bakery that's not, or a salad dressing company that's not using it as a primary ingredient. It's not jarred up. There's just no money there.
Yeah, that's basically just a sugar delivery vehicle. We definitely like the small scale consumption of it, and you know, having our neighbors taste it, and you know, taste that this is the taste of their neighborhood, of all the flora from their neighborhood. There's a lot more satisfaction in that, I think.
Yeah, there's a magic in there because people, you know, they see the beehives and it came from, they lived through the season where it was produced, and it's really special.